What's up, everybody? This is Joseph Beach from Inner Work Family and Relationship Coaching. This is the second part of the series that I was telling you about the other day, Blended. Um, Today, I want to talk more from the aspect of what happens to the kids when they're in a blended family and the parents aren't really working together, and maybe the stepfather or the stepmother have issues when it comes to disciplining them and or how to handle certain situations. The first thing we have to factor in is, what is the child's dynamic? What was the dynamic that they came out of? Did they come out of a dynamic where they've been moved from house to house, family member to family member? They might have been living with their mom, and then they got moved over to their dad, and then from their dad to the grandma, and then back to mom. When you have that type of situation, it can bring a lot of strife and a lot of issues into your relationship. Because, see, now the child is trying to figure out, how come people don't love me, because they keep shifting me around to other people. And it's not necessarily that the parents don't love them or the grandparents don't love them. um, Things just happen. You don't know if the father might have had to, he lost his job and he just couldn't afford to be able to take care of the child, or if the mother is in, sick and something happened with her. With grandparents, some of them are just old, and not old like dying or anything, but they're just older, and they can't handle raising another young child. um so we have to take all of these things into account. Now, when the new spouse comes into play, we have to understand what their dynamic is as well. Because, are they coming from a place where they're highly on disciplinarians, or are they more, let the child just do what they do, and we're raising them to make their own choices or something like that? Or, you know is it gonna come in agreement with the um, biological parent is feeling at the same time, or the parent that's not in the house? So this is why it's so important to have to sit down and try to figure out how you're going to handle all these things from the beginning. So in these areas, you have to sit down. You have to figure out what's going on. You need to talk to the child, because you need to understand if there's some underlying issues that are happening with the child and nobody knows. We don't know if when the child was with somebody else, if they were abused in some kind of way, if they were um, beaten or anything. You got to understand the things that are going on. So it's so important to be able to sit down and find out what the underlining things are, what the dynamics are that they're coming from, and then you can create your own dynamic of how this child should be raised, how the child should be loved, how um, to be able to remove some of the fears that the child has, how to be able to create a better foundation for them, how to give them a place of trust, where they feel safe. That's one of the biggest things for children, is they want to feel safe, they want to feel loved, they want to feel that they have the approval of their parents, whether you're a step parent or if you are the biological parent. So we have to be really careful in those areas. um when you really, really think about it, you go back to your own dynamics and think about it. I know when I was growing up, my mom was big on discipline. Boy, you did something wrong, you were getting disciplined. But my stepmother was harder than my own mom was, which was really, really interesting. My stepfather, though, he was not as, he was more of, let me just talk to him. Let me just have a conversation with him. And he tried to find out exactly what was going on with me. He was really laid back, but I mean, he could be stern now. Don't think he wasn't stern. But he looked to find out those underlining things that were happening in my life. And we have to do that with our other children as well. So be mindful of that. Now, when you do have these issues, then you need to think about, do we need to sit down with a counselor or with a coach, to help the family build a new kind of dynamic? to help the child understand what it is that you're trying to do, and how you're trying to raise them, keeping them from the dangers of the world. Of course, we can't keep them from everything, but we can prepare them. And that's what it's all about, preparing our children to be able to enter into the world and do things, that are going to be helpful for them, things that are going to be healthy for their life and for their relationships. Now, this is really, really key. The things that we do with our kids now is going to be what's going to determine what happens to them when they're in relationship with other people, period. Not just in relationship for dating or marriage, but working relationship, just friend relationship, family relationships. So, what we're doing is we're trying to help mold them and shape them and give them a good foundation to work from. God is always a good place to start at when it comes to a foundation. He's the greatest place to start. Let him be the center and the foundation of where you want to begin. You know, I know a lot of people might be like, well, I'm not into God and things like that, but you have to do what's going to be healthy, what's going to work, what's going to bring along a good how can I say this? What's going to bring along a good, healthy environment and foundation for the child. So, um, because I try to be biblically based, I try to go from the foundation, and my foundation is God. So, with that being said, that's why I say make sure that your children have a really great foundation and that they'll be able to do the things that they need to do. So, another area is if you have a child that is acting out or reacting to certain things, if they're stealing, if they're always arguing, if they're getting into fights at school, if they're failing in school, you really, really need to dig down deep to find out what's going on. Now, being a step parent, it could be really, really hard to get a child to talk to you. So the thing is don't talk to them like you're talking over them, or if you're trying to be the person in charge. Talk to them with love. Talk to them like with some care, like you really, really want to know what's going on so you can help them. And that really helps them to understand that this person really, really does care about me. It's not always about yelling and screaming and trying to discipline or beat somebody. You have to really understand what children are going through. And in this day and age and in this world, our children deal with a lot of adult issues that they shouldn't have to. So they have to deal with the ideals that their parents decided not to be together. That's a big issue for a child. Then they have to deal with how do you handle, because they have family on both sides and they love both, their parents. So, but the parents are mad at each other, and then the family of their parents are mad at the other parents' family and everything. And you got to be really, really careful that the child is not pulled into the middle of this kind of stuff. So it really helps, again, that if you guys sit down and talk about the best possible way to um, raise your child as parenting in a parenting relationship and nothing else. As the step parent, you have to kind of know when it's time to be in it and when it's the time to step back. Because sometimes when there's things going on with the child, you might have to step back because they might believe that you are the issue. You are the person that came and took their, moved their father out the way or moved their mother out the way. So you have to be really, really careful. You have to sit down and you have to talk with the child. And I know that, the our mindset could be, well, they're a child and they really don't have a say so. No, they don't really have a say so, but it should still matter because they are part of the family. So you have to be careful in those areas. So, what other thing can we talk about in that? When you're bringing in your children along with your spouse's children. Now, we have to figure out, how do we parent these kids together and how do we show them love? We show them love all the way across the board. Nobody's children is more important than the other. They're all important because they're all our children. Because we have decided to come together in a union, and we need to understand, if we come together in a union, that we need to treat our children, our stepchildren, just like they are our children. I know I use the word stepchildren. It's just really just to show the difference between, that's all. because as far as I'm concerned, if you marry somebody and they have children and you're in their lives, they are your children as well. So that's the only reason why I use step. Um, so when you have two sets of kids, you have to sit them all down and let them understand nobody is more important than anybody else. You're all going to be treated equally. We love you all the same. We're going to treat you all the same. If you do something wrong, we're going to handle that the same as well. Nobody gets anything more than another. Okay, so you have to be really, really careful on that as well, because I know as parents, sometimes we feel that our children are more important than the other children because we haven't been around those children all our lives. But when we go into this new relationship, that means that we're going to be around them for a very long time. So, and when children can tell if you love them or not love them, and they can tell when you're just trying to play like you care about them, but you're really just in it for their parent. So you have to be really, really careful. Kids are smart. They are not dumb by a long shot. So just, be careful in those areas as well. So, but this is all just really just to make us understand that when we're dealing with our kids, when we're in a blended relationship, that we have the power to change everything in the dynamic that we're in. We don't have to treat them bad. We don't have to be terrible. We don't have to be the slave master. We don't have to be the overseer. We just need to be the parent. We need to show them love. We need to show them that when they do something wrong, that they need to be responsible for the things that they've done wrong. So if you do something wrong, you need to take responsibility for the things that you do wrong as well. So so really just think about those things. Remember that our children are treasures from God that we need to understand and really look at how we handle them, the foundation that we're building for them, the future that we want them to have.